again. I'm trying not to. I'm like editing
But the
for
greatest,
spoiler.
the
Yes.
greatest miracle of this play is forgiveness.
Yeah.
Because everything that happens in it is very human. It's done by humans. But to forgive, that is for me, personally, I don't know what it's like for you, that is the hardest thing for me to do. To just let someone go out of jail, out of the jail I live in. You're free to go. You're free to go. And what that means. And I always fear it means, oh, they're going to forget that it ever happened, and I'm going to forget it ever happened. And it's not going to go in the books as a you did wrong, and I was right. And you're never going to. And if I let you go, you're just going to assume everything's fine. When you were kids and your parents would turn around and say, if you two don't be quiet, and you're like, it was him. Don't put me in the same conversation with him. He hit me. And my dad was like, I don't care. He was just smacking whoever he hit. Driving up the coast to see reaction. So it's very deep for me. The act of forgiveness in this play is the most miraculous part. And it's the one that's enacted subtextually in the play. It happens in an event that you will feel. And the great thing that Patricia and Blum are going to do is make you feel this play, which is the most important thing. I'm going to switch, if I could, get off this beautiful stuff that's going to give you, I think, a lot to chew on as you watch the play. I want to just talk for just a couple minutes. I'll open up to questions. So here's the situation at our theater. You have to kind of, actors are in maybe a show, if you call it show 1, and they might be in show 2. Well, for a while, they're basically under one singular contract, which means they only have so many hours they can rehearse for the day, for the show. And then, so we have a lot of conflicts in the show because 2 of the actors, Taib Tillum and Peter Callender, are in Lady Windermere's band. And Alva Billingsley. Yes, sorry. Yeah, okay, let it go. And so, they took this on as a kind of they figured out a methodology of working, and they called it...
Oh, the 3-ring Shakespeare!
Wow, that was very well done, right? So just tell them a little bit about how you managed to take... and I throw on them, you get to do this with 7 actors. Because I want to, I'm figuring out methodologies in which we could afford to do this work, and also, I'm turned on by the way this work is all happening now. When I saw Shauna's production of Romeo and Juliet, bits and pieces of My Tempest, I was like, oh, there's, actors are so fantastic. Oh, hello. So, what did you do?
So we decided, we have brilliant people in the room, and so I said, let's actually set up 3 different rooms. So this is, the rehearsal room is what I consider the main ring. It usually has the most people, and I'm rehearsing the play with the actors, and we have the musicians, and or the music, and all of those elements in there. Our brilliant dramaturg, Kathleen, usually before they make it into the main ring, they have worked with Kathleen on the text. They've gone line by line in exercises that talk about what are all of the references, that make sure that they are very, very clear on what they are saying. And she often does an exercise called In Other Words. So if you were to say Shakespeare, if you were to say To Be or Not to Be, and I might say In Other Words, and you have to say in your own vocabulary what that means. That makes these words of Shakespeare, the concepts, the references, it personalizes it for them, so they are very prepared. Then we send them to ring number 2, which is Paloma's ring. Where, actually, do you want to talk about what you're doing?
Sure. So often Kathleen and I will I'll listen in to Kathleen's dramaturgical, interpretive session so that I have an understanding of where the actor's coming from, and also watching their body language as they put things in other words, because I feel as though when we're talking, I do this a lot, I gesticulate and move around, and I feel like all of us use our bodies to help emphasize the points that we're making. So I'm already kind of mining some information from them, but then going through page by page, maybe monologue by monologue, looking at the verbs. How are we activating this world, this language? What's happening? For me, what's really important, in addition to the text, is what's happening inside the body. Even if it's not, for me, movement work is not just about, oh, and then we've choreographed these big gestures, but so many things as we're speaking or interacting in the world are happening inside our bodies that the people we're working with can perceive even if they can't name it. And I want them to find that as part of the work that they're doing on stage. I want audiences to be able to perceive things that maybe they can't name, but that made them really understand what was happening in that moment with the character. And then some of that vocabulary may make its way into larger form in the work. And I'm really interested in how the actors feel the most active parts of their language.
So then, they've gone through ring 1, ring 2, and we often, when we know we're changing rings, we go, do, 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 you know, so that means the little things that we actually do it. And then they come in so prepared. You know, right now I'm training for a marathon, and I think often about the way I ran 10 miles today, I feel very excited. But in order to do that, I needed to stretch for 10 minutes before. I kind of could have done it cold, but it would have been a much harder thing. So in many ways, doing that text work, that dramaturgical work, doing this physical work, gets them, when they come into the main ring, juiced, ready, primed, so that in these more limited hours that we were sometimes wrestling with, and that's one of those things, that could bring out your personal Leontes. There was a moment where it's like, oh, no, will we get it done? No, reframe it, I thought. Learn from this play. Don't go down the rabbit hole. Come out a better way and find an opportunity out of there. And the opportunity now means there's a whole methodology that I think we'll be using for the rest of our life. And we'll say, oh yeah, at Cal Shakes, we actually were able to develop this thing. But then the fruits of what they have created in those other 2 areas are able to be fully fleshed out in this in the main ring. So it's really
And once again, proving that the pain that I caused often results in beautiful works of art, right? Sorry, I'm going to jump ahead
Yes,
because I want to open this up for questions. You should all come up and see this because, you know, as you know, the floor can either be nothing on our stage, as it kind of is in Lady Windermere. You know, it's a gray, trying to keep the focus upwards. They'd originally wanted it to be really shiny and glossy like the paintings. Or it can be, I'm going to take this off.
Yeah.
Narnia meets going down the rabbit hole. It's a slightly future fable with a beautiful, huge, I don't know how many feet is this, maybe 20, 18 feet, building that spins from Sicilia, which opens up in a different way than this, but a little bit like those advent calendars.
Yeah.
But only evil is in there. and then it turns around and it becomes Cecilia, and it opens up, and there are more colors that come in. And there's a big camper that the storytellers come out of at the beginning. They do a little prologue, and then they tell the story, and they don the character, the clothes of the characters. And there is going to be audience participation. You don't have to do any of that, although that was great. We should give more money to the theater so you can join groups and they can all speak to that. And lots of other things that are beautiful and fantastical. And this, I don't know who this is. Who is this?
This is Paulina.
This is
So
Paulina.
in the very beginning, Margot, as the storyteller,
Margot Hall,
Margot
who
Hall.
was a fantastic actress, was in Spunk last year and was in American Night this year.
so in the beginning, when they are all coming out of the camper and kind of gypsy storytellers introducing you to the idea of Shakespeare and why you might like it, and even if you have to have a glass of wine to like it. So she's in this, and then at a certain point when we go to the time speech, can I say this? Is this
Yeah.
okay? Yeah. So the time speech, we're actually going to have audience member. There's going to be an audience member or a few audience members chosen to do the time speech each night. And when she makes that offer, she's actually going to have the audience member put this cape on when they give this time speech, and it's actually made to replicate a moth. And which also, to me, replicates the concentric rings like in a tree where you mark time and mark moth. So when she invites the audience member to come and participate, say John was our audience member and I wanted to baptize him to keep time, she would find a more magical way to do this, but then she gives him the cloak And now that audience member is officially part of the traveling troupe and will deliver the time speech.
Oh gosh, Jay, thank you for taking all.
And I'll say one of the things that I love about this costume piece, we often talk in this play about how people contain their opposites or their shadows. So this was one way to, at least in a design element, say, okay, I have both grace and tyranny inside of me. I have both play and serious reflection. I have all of those. So.